Welcome to SUP Safe Module 6, River Level Apps. Again, a bit like the weather, there are now websites which specialise in supplying detailed river information and even forecasts for the next 36 hours. They tend to be websites and not apps, but you can still save a shortcut link on your smartphone for your favourite paddling spots. We can review what's available and what works best. Let's just run through the contents for this module. First off, we'll review three river level apps that I found to be quite useful. We'll look at interpreting the river level data. We'll just look at a few things to bear in mind when planning a trip on the river. And we'll talk about understanding the flow. So we've got some top tips about making it easier when we paddle on the river. And then we'll finish off with a spot of homework which we can all do. Okay, let's look at the river level app. So the first one is riverlevels.co.uk. So here you get an interactive map that you can search for the monitoring stations on your favourite rivers. You get spot data and weekly graphs are available. So you can go onto the website. You can zoom into your local area, then the little green arrows indicate where the monitoring stations are. So if we just kind of say, okay, I want to have a look at the monitoring station at Yarm. So this is the spot data that I can get. So it's telling me that the river level is rising, and currently it's 0.906 meters. And it's saying the other thing you just get the orange is low, the green is kind of normal, and the kind of red is kind of high. So maybe once we start to get to the top end of the green and into the red, that's telling us that the river is going to be in flood. And we can also get a weekly trend. So this is showing us what the river level's been doing for the last week. And again, the green area is the kind of typical level, and as we start to climb up from the grey up towards the dark green line, then obviously the river level is increasing, and also the flow down the river will be increasing. Okay, let's look at the second river level app. This is floodwarninginformationservice.gov.uk, river and sea levels. We get an interactive map again, which we can zoom in on our local area. So again, if we go for Yarm, so we can click on Yarm, so we get a graphical display showing us what the trend has been for the last 5 days. And you don't get it for every monitoring station, but at Yarm there's been lots of historical flooding, so you actually get a prediction for the next 36 hours, which is quite handy. The other thing we can do quite easily, so if we're looking at the monitoring station here, and maybe we want to look at what's the river level doing up at Low Moor, which is 2 miles upstream. So we can click on that, and then this takes us to the river level for the last 5 days for Low Moor. So we can actually see the river level's been rising, and it's actually starting to come down now. So with us seeing the river level upstream coming down, then obviously that's going to give us some confidence about going out on the river, that the level is not going to be rising. Out of all the 3 apps which we're going to look at today, this is the one that I use the most. It's easy to use. You get a lot of information. Okay, this is the last app that we're going to look at today. So this is gagemap.co.uk. I've only kind of stumbled across this quite recently. It's quite jazzy, it's quite colourful, so might actually start using this a little bit more. So again, we get an interactive map, so we can zoom in. So again, this is Yarm, so we can zoom into Yarm, click on Yarm, and then we get a nice little trend of what the river level has been. So we've got some bands below typical flooding, and again it's quite easy to kind of zoom backwards. So at the moment we're looking at Yarm. I can look at Low Moor, Croft, or Broken Scar upstream. So that's quite handy. So yeah, so if I click on Low Moor, so it's taken me up to Low Moor, and again I can see the river level's been rising, and now it's starting to come down. So again, that's going to give me some confidence about going out on the river, that the level's going to be coming down. Okay, interpreting river level data. So we're just going to go through a few points here. So as we've spoken about previously, unfortunately, the river level doesn't give us a definitive idea of what the flow is, and obviously, as paddlers, we're really interested in the flow. Can we actually paddle upstream against the flow? Obviously, we do know that higher river levels mean more flow, but coming to a judgment about what level is too high is only going to come with experience of, going to the same river a few times, experiencing what the level is and how that feels at paddling upstream. Yeah, it's also kind of worth noting, obviously, as the level gets higher, then obviously the risk of debris coming down the river increases. And obviously especially over the summer, and then we come into autumn and we start getting maybe more rain and we get increased river levels, we can get quite a lot of debris coming down the river, and that's actually going to include some pretty big logs. So we need to be careful. The other thing as well, when the river level is high, obstructions like bridges, so we're paddling underneath a bridge, then obviously when we go underneath the bridge arches, then the flow actually increases even further. So just be careful. Yeah, and remember, when the river level increases, we can, if we do fall off our board, etc., we can get trapped against bridges and boats when the current's strong. So we need to be careful. One thing we haven't talked about so far on this course is kind of about whitewater rivers. Yeah, there's a reason for that. Obviously, we obviously need to be experienced to do that, but we also need some slightly different equipment. So we definitely need to be wearing a PFD. We definitely need a quick release leash. So if we fall off and get our leash entangled up, we can actually be dragged under the water and drowned, even though we have a PFD, and that's because the current can be so strong. So we need a quick release leash, so we can activate that and separate ourselves from our board. And the other thing, we probably need to be looking at some shallower draft fins, so some river fins, and they tend to be flexible as well. So if we kind of bash our fins against the rock, we're not going to snap them. So if that's the kind of thing that you need to do, then maybe get some specialist training with a local coach or instructor. Okay, just a few more points about interpreting the river level. So obviously we've got a graph here, and the river level's starting to rise. And again, this is Yarm, so this is telling us what the next 36 hours is. So excuse me, obviously planning a trip on Tuesday here, that doesn't look like a good idea. But again here, this is Yarm again. We've had quite a lot of rain. The river's gone up and the river's coming back down. So the following Monday, planning a trip on the river, then that does look promising. Okay, we'll just summarise with a few things to bear in mind for when we're planning to paddle on the river. So, has it been raining in the upstream catchment areas for the river? Are the upstream level monitoring stations rising or falling? Is there a barrage or floodgate upstream or downstream that could be opened, leading to an increase in flow? And finally, is the river tidal? We'll talk a little bit more about the effects of the tide in the next module. Understanding the river flow. Okay, we're on the home straight now. We've only got a couple more slides to do. So we've got a lovely river. The river level's quite low, and we've got the flow going from left to right, and it the floor's quite low, and it's pretty easy to paddle either way without any kind of real interaction with the flow. As the river level starts to rise, maybe it's been raining for the last few days, the flow in the river it tends to get pushed to the outside of the bends. So we get so on the outside of the bends the flow's quite fast, and on the inside the flow's a lot lower. We can spot this kind of high flow area on the river, so there might be some leaves in the river that we can see, or there might be some debris. So if we are maybe planning a trip and we want to paddle upstream, then obviously we're normally paddling on the right. So if we're kind of setting off here, well, this is where all the flow is. So by slowly moving out into the middle, we can actually reduce the flow of the current. One thing we need to be careful of is we really shouldn't be pulling right over onto the left, because if there's a craft coming in the opposite direction, then obviously we don't want a near miss or a collision. But moving into the middle and then hugging the bank when we get here, round the inside of the bank, move into the middle, etc. That's just going to make it a little bit easier for us to paddle upstream. If we're paddling downstream, then hey, we want to jump on the area that's got the high flow. So we'd kind of hug the outside of the bends, and that's going to give us an easy ride down the river. Just one last thing: if we're planning, thinking, okay, I'm getting a bit thirsty or a bit hungry or a bit tired, and I want to rest, then the best places to rest are on the inside of the bends, because that's where the least flow is, and the areas that we should probably avoid stopping are on the outside of bends. So especially if there's any large bits of debris coming down the river, so logs, etc. If we are stationary on the outside of the bend, then obviously we run the risk of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So I hope that's helped. Okay, almost there now. Just going to run through a spot of homework. Number one, I'm suggesting that you download the river apps shortcuts onto your smartphone and set them up for your favorite places. So whether that's the River Weir at Durham, or the Yarm at River Tees, etc. And then number two, over the kind of coming weeks and coming months, when you're actually out paddling, start to try and reconcile river level to how easy, medium or hard it feels to paddle upstream. This is then going to make it really easy for you to look at the river level and go, okay, I know it's going to be medium today or easy or hard, etc. Okay, congratulations, you've completed SUP Safe Module 6. Well done.